Uh, yep. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Good evening to all of you. Uh, so sorry for this delay. Some issue with my laptop today. So I was figuring out what was going wrong. Anyways, let me just open the chat box here. Yep. And let me also just share my screen. Okay. All right. So we are live again. Hi, everyone. Good evening, Kalyani. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, Victor. Good evening, Ashwin. Hi. Hello. Yes. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Okay. So again, I welcome you to this day 5 of this HTML and CSS bootcamp. Again, today is the last day. Today we are going to cover a bit of flex. Or what I'm thinking is let's directly start with the project. In that project only, we'll be introducing ourselves to some more flex properties, because if I theoretically teach you the flex topics and then again implement in the project, it will be two tasks for us, right? So let's do one thing. Let's directly implement the project, get along with the project, and in the project we'll see some new flex properties in real life, actually, right? How to implement them in a portfolio. Okay. So what I'll do here is, first of all, we'll figure out how the UI would look like, right? We'll figure out the user interface step. Okay. So let me just open the draw pad. Let me just okay. Now we are fine. So first, let's look at something called as the user interface, right? I remember on the day one itself we talked about something called as the UI. Again, the UI is nothing but it stands for user interface, right? It is just a blueprint, you can say. It just gives you the look and feel of how your final product is going to look like, right? Now, since we are only using HTML and CSS, right, we'll only focus on these parts, right? uh, because this bootcamp is not about JavaScript, but I leave a scope of adding JavaScript. Once you're done with the JavaScript bootcamp, you can go ahead and implement some cool features as well, right? So now let's try to figure out what our this thing could look like. So again, as we all know, we are building a portfolio kind of thing, right? And this portfolio uh, is something like a CV, right? We all know what CV is, but a portfolio is more than that, right? Apart from your in a portfolio, you can also have some. You can also show some extra co-curricular activities, and it is usually managed by people who are in the field, such as the IT fields, or some people in graphics, or I would say video editing and things like that, right? Okay. Now let's see what all features or what all sections we could have in our portfolio, right? So I think we already have the notes that was prepared. So if you see the notes, we are mainly concerned about three sections. right? The first section being the about section. This will tell us about yourself, your education background, maybe what do you do and things like that. Then we could have something like a project section. And lastly, we could have something like a contact section, right? In which we can, we can, what we can do is we can maybe add some contact details if someone wants to reach out to us, or maybe someone wants to send them some message through a portfolio, they can do it, right? Now let's see how do we go about this. Okay, first comes the about section. Now I want to ask you guys, what do you think should come in the about section? Right? I have my own opinions of what I'm thinking to include, but first I'm asking you guys, what do you think what do you think the details, what all details should ideally be there in the about section? If you have seen some portfolios of some people, or let's suppose you even have a portfolio right now, what all things are to be there, are to be included in this about section? Anyone in the chat box? Come on. Anyone? Overview. Okay. Overview of what you do, right? What is it about basically? Okay. So let's suppose this is my Windows, this is my viewport. Okay. And see, first thing first, we'll have a navbar. We all know what navbar is, right? The we also call this navbar, which is usually the header of the page, right? You can say a header, right? Header. Now, apart from that, once we put in some details in the header, we could come here and to the about us section, where we'll write a short and crisp definition, or not a definition, an introduction, right, of what we do. Let's suppose if I'm a front end developer, I'll say maybe something like, an enthusiast, front end developer, front end developer, developer, that brings, that converts, I'll say, that converts designs to code, right? Something, maybe a catchy line, something like this. It could be your personal tagline, right? It could be anything, right? After this section, like after this section, we could have something like our projects, like to showcase what projects we have done so far. And so if I look about here at the project section, right? Let's suppose if you have multiple projects, let's suppose one, two projects, three projects, we could have it one below each other, right, with a small description and the title of the project, most importantly, right? And lastly, at the end of the day, we could have a contact page. This would be a form, right? Remember we did form yesterday. We could have an input form, maybe an input form, wherein you can, a user who's visiting your website, he or she wants to reach out to you, right? He wants to, maybe we would want, the name of that person plus the contact number, right? We can also have a contact page somewhere here, right? A contact page as well. So I'm just writing it for the reference, maybe a contact page, right? So that's how we'll implement. This is just a feel of how it would look like, right? Obviously, there are tools to design the website. This is just a raw structure, and a very famous tool that is used to design the interface is called as Figma. I don't know if you have heard of it or not, but Figma is a very emerging tool nowadays, which is used to design front end of the application, and this Figma also has the capacity of getting the code, right? Let's suppose if you design something, it can also fetch you the HTML as well as the CSS code for it, right? But that's obviously a paid version. You can get only some extent for free, then rest not. Okay, now let's get started, right? Let's go to the code page. So what I'll do here is, first of all, I will like to make a new folder, right? So what I'll do, I'll click on file, not a new file, I think we already have a file. Just make a new, what do you say, a file here. I'll say portfolio, portfolio.html, and I'll just make the boilerplate. Okay. Now, uh, we have done inline CSS. Now, this time we're going to use something called as the external CSS, right? External CSS is nothing but, in external CSS, what we do is we can have a separate file for HTML plus a separate file for CSS. And we can link this file in this HTML. So the code is neater in terms of that it only has the HTML code and this file only has the CSS code. Right? It is much more easier to debug and much more clean. Now let's see how to link CSS. Okay. So first of all, what I'll do here is I'll make a new file, CSS file. I'll say styles.css. Okay. Now, if I want to link my CSS file in my HTML file, I have a link tag. Okay. I'll come in my header. Now, the CSS only has to link in the header file. I'll say link. We have relation, or you can say something called as relation. This will always be a style sheet, and this will be the name of the file. So my file name is styles.css, and accordingly, I have style. So I'll write styles.css. Styles.css. Okay. Is this thing clear? So that's how we link a CSS file. Now, I don't need to explicitly write CSS in the HTML file. I have a separate CSS file. I can write my CSS file here, and whatever CSS I write here, it will be reflected in my portfolio.html file. Getting it? So now, first of all, as we designed it, let's first of all start with the header section. So I'll use a semantic tag here. I'll use a tag called as header. Right. Now, in this header, I'll have a navigation window, right? So again, we have a semantic tag nav. So I'll just write nav. Okay. Now, as we talked about, we have three sections: about section, project section, and the contact section, right? Acha. So I will want that, let's do one thing. Let's have an S3 tag. This one will say about us. And I'll similarly copy these. Here I'll mention projects as we discussed, and lastly we'll have a contact us page. So I'll contact us page. Okay, I'll close the header. I'll close it now. If I go live, open the live server, we'll have something like this, right? Now obviously this needs to come in a horizontal way, not in a vertical way. So we'll do that, and we'll do that by using flexbox, right? Okay. So let's come to the CSS part later on. Let's first design the overall picture of how it's going to look like. Okay. Now, once we are done this part, with this part, let's now come to the about us page. Or let's do one thing. Let's first design this, right? Let's first get with the CSS of this part. Okay. So I'll come to my style.css and I'll say header. So by the way, what I'm thinking here is to maybe provide it some background color, because it should look distinct, right? My header should look distinct and my rest of the page should look differently. So I'm thinking of giving it a background color, right? It could be violet, Then I'm thinking of giving it a text color. Color should be white. Okay. This is looking like this now. And one more thing I'm thinking, let's bring it to the center. Or first of all, let's me do text align center. Now this is looking something like this. That this is the center of the page, but I would still want it to be in a horizontal way. It's your personal choice. It could be looking decent like this also, but if you want to, you can have it one to side of each other. It's your own personal choice, right? Getting it? Is it clear, this part? Any issues with this part so far? Anyone? No? Chalo. No. Okay, let's make it horizontal. So for that, obviously, this is my header, right? If I come here, this is my header, and inside header, I have nav. Okay. So for now, if again I told you yesterday, right? If you want to give display flex properties, it should be in the parent. So these three can be considered as the child, and this navbar could be considered as the parent. So what I'll do is I'll go to nav, Control C. I'll come here. I'll say nav, and I'll say display flex. Now once I do this, they are in a horizontal way. Okay. Now I need to bring it to the center, so I'll say align items center and justify content also to the center. Okay, now they're at the center of the page. Okay, one more interesting property that Flex has that we did not cover yesterday is a gap. Right now, you can explicitly tell how much gap do you want between your child elements, between your elements of the Flex box. So I'll say gap. Right, this is a property called as gap. I'll say maybe 10 pixels. So now if you see, it will have a gap. If you want to increase it more, I can say maybe 20 pixels. Right, this is looking decent. Maybe I want to change the color. Let's have the color to black, to be black. Color should be black. Not RGB, I want only black. Yeah. Okay. By the way, do you see these there's a bit space on the top? A bit space on the top. Can you see this? Right? So I'll tell you why is this coming. This is coming because your browsers, they have a default CSS property, right? They have a default margin, a default padding, and things like that. Now, if you want to get rid of that, there's something called as a universal selector. So universal selector is a star. This is called as a universal selector. That means this CSS will apply to all my page, irrespective of what tags there are, what elements I'm using. It is irrespective of that. So I'll say that, hey, just do one thing, just whatever margin you are taking by default, just do the margin as 0 and padding also as 0. Once I do this, you see this gap is gone now, and there's no gap from the top. And to this header, I can give some height maybe 200 pixels. Acha, interestingly, what you can do here is you can directly go to the inspect panel, right? You can directly let me bring it to the sideways. Yeah, you can directly come to the inspect panel. You can directly select this. You can directly select this code, and you can directly play around with it, right? So here, this is the let's come to the header, right? If this is the height, you can adjust the height according to your need. It will be visible to you, right? If I'm reducing it, right? See, 144 pixels, something like that. So you can do it. So I think this is okay. That is 66 pixels. So I'll quickly copy this and paste it here, 66 pixels. Okay. Now, if I close this is how it looks, right? Maybe a bit of margin from the top. So I can just say margin. And if you want to only have a top margin, there's a property called as margin top. So margin top maybe 20 pixels. Right. No, not looking good. No, let's not give margin here. Let's give margin here only in the navbar. Did I not comment this? Yeah. Let me apply a border. Let's see where it's coming from. 2 pixels, solid, black. Okay. Awesome. Let me remove this. Okay. And maybe let's give some padding as well. Padding maybe 14 pixels. Yeah, now it looks decent, right? Okay. Any doubts till this part? So we have what we have done is I'll just open the code side by side. So let me just apply border for easier explanation. I'll apply border 2 pixels, solid, red, and to this part I'll apply black border. Right. So this red border is the header. This black border is the navbar. So we have given navbar display flex such that all the child properties, that is about us, project, and contact us properties, could be aligned in a horizontal way. And by the way, the default flex direction is in a horizontal way only, right? That is column. Awesome. Clear till this part? Any doubts till this part? Just let me know. And let me just comment these. Clear, right? Everyone, yes or no in the chat box. Is it clear? Yes or no? कुछ समझ नहीं आया तो just let me know. I'll explain that again. Clear, everyone? Awesome. Cool. Now let's move ahead, right? Let's now come to the projects part of it. Okay. Let me just do it full screen. Now for project part, let me create a section for the, let's come to the about us part first. So let me create a section. So I'll create a section, and section is again a semantic tag, right? Let me give it an ID called as section. Now here, first of all, I'll write maybe something about me. I'll write something about me. Now maybe I'll have a paragraph tag that will say front-end developer, FRONT, front-end developer who converts design to code. Right. Again, you are free to write whatever introduction you want to. Right? That's just a demo for you. If I come here, it looks something like this, right? Now first, let's make the whole middle section. Then we'll come to the CSS part of it. Right. After that, let's make a section for the projects. Okay, so I'll give it the ID of projects, and here I could make a heading called as my projects. Okay, once this is done, then I'll have to maybe describe my project. So I'll take a div. In that container, I'll do one thing. I'll have two things. Maybe you can have an introduction, maybe a tagline, maybe a heading of the project, and some description about that project. Okay, so I'll make a div. In that div, let's make a header first for the project. So I'll say project description, or not a description, I'll say project heading. And below that, maybe a paragraph that says project description. Yeah, fine. And then I'll close my div. And let's suppose I have maybe two projects altogether. So I'll quickly, copy this div, and let's give it a class as well, because maybe we need to display it in a horizontal way. So flex we have to apply. So let's me give project classes project. So I'll quickly copy this so that it becomes like this. Uh, okay, now this is the project spot. So and now let's come to it. It looks something like this. Now let's try to decorate it. Right. Now let's try to decorate it. Let's look at the CSS part of it. Okay. Now for that, let me open this side by side. Okay. Now for that, first of all, we have section. Right. It has an ID. So maybe we can first of all do one thing. Right. All the things that are present in this section, let's work on the alignment. So it should be centrally aligned, and let's give it some padding and margin also so that it looks kind of neat. So I already have an ID section, right? I can also target the tag itself. So I'll come to the CSS part of it. I'll say section, and I'll say maybe I'll get some padding first, padding of 14 pixels, right? A bit, and a color to distinguish it, not columns. Color maybe aquam, azure. No, it's white. Maybe aquamarine. Not looking good actually. Too much light. Let's open the color wheel. Yeah, this is looks decent to me. Again, this is your all personal choice, right? So yeah. After the section, now let's come to the project part of it. So I think we gave it a class. Yeah. So class, again, how to reference the class? We use a dot notation. So I'll say dot. What was the name? Yeah, dot project. Okay. Now this should be interesting. Okay. First of all, let's give it a cool background color. So background color, maybe this one. Yeah. Okay. A bit of padding. Bit of padding. Yep. Okay. Now display flex, not block. I'll say flex. Now this is now horizontally aligned. Okay. And also let's give it a border first to actually see where it is being applied. So I'll give border 2 pixels solid and black. Okay, cool. Okay. And obviously we want that these come one below each other. So for that we need to again come to this part. This is the project part. We need to give flex to this as well. Right. So what I'll do here is, where is this section ending, by the way? It's not ending somewhere. It should end here now. Section should end here. Yeah, something like this, because it was opening but it was not ending. Now it's ending as such. Okay, now this time what I have in CSS is I have the project. This has display flex, and in project we have these things, right? And they're horizontally aligned. Now what I'll do here is I'll make another div. I'll say dot maybe project details. Project details I'll write, and I'll enclose it inside this div. Okay, I'll tell you why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I wanted to be this thing. I wanted to be always aligned vertically, right? Not to side of each other. Okay, and similarly I'll also come here. I'll say dot project details, and I'll enclose it inside this div. Okay, now this is the section. I'll go to the project section. I'll comment flex from here. I'll go to the dot project section and I'll apply display flex here. Okay, and with this part, let me comment this part out and gives it some border 2 pixels, solid and black. Wait a second, it's not, border is not coming, maybe some mistake. Okay, it is id, right? We have to use hashtag, not a class, not a dot, so we have to use a hashtag, right? This is how it looks. uh, okay, a suggestion I want to ask you guys: do we want this project to be one beside each other or next to each other? I would still prefer next to each other because projects, it will be better if we make it one below each other. So let me just come remove this. It's looking decent now only, right? Okay. Okay. Now what I'll do here is display flex stuff I've already applied. I'll do align items, center, and justify content also as center. And now it comes to the center of the page. Okay. And in the description part, you would have a lorem ipsum, lorem 40. Here also you could have lorem. Oh, this is how it looks now. I would still want that this should come to the center, right? Now this should come to the center and this as well. So let's make it to the center. So project heading, where is that project heading? Project heading. Yeah, this one, H3. Let's give it a class maybe. Chalo, okay, no need of class. Let's directly come to H3. H3, I'll say align items to the center. Not working. So let's do one thing. First apply a border. Let's see where it is from. So I'll say border 2 pixels, solid. Okay. Okay, this is the project. So let's apply some margin left to it. Okay, maybe 14 pixels. This we can adjust from the this page. So I'll do one thing. I'll come to this part. I'll come here and I'll apply. No, this is also because this is also moving, right? As you can see, the nav bar is also moving. So we need to give it a class maybe, right? So h3, I'll give it a class. I'll say class equals to project heading, and I'll copy the same class here also. Class equals project heading, and the CSS I'll give it to now, instead of h3 I'll give it to class heading. Okay, now let's try to let's, instead of pixels, let's give percent. Let's make it down. Okay, looks decent now. 50% भी ठीक है. Fine. Right? Obviously, there are other ways to do that also. You can give text line center. You can also give. You can also apply flex properties, and you can do justify content center. But this is also one of the way. So if you want to, you can also use some other ways. I'm just doing it like this. So I'll comment borders out, and I will give it like this. Okay, this is how it's looking so far. We still have the about me section to design. So I'll quickly do one thing in the about me section. Let's come to about me section. This section. Let me have a div called as about div, and I'll enclose these things inside this div. Right, and I'll now come to dot about. I'll just say display flex. Okay, I'll also apply. I want the flex direction to be column only, right? This time I want it to be column. So I'll say flex direction to be column, one below each other. And justify content, center, align items, also center, right? And maybe some gap between the two. So I'll just say gap of 14 pixels. Okay, and background color of something gray, not all gray, maybe some opacity we can apply. Yeah, this looks decent. Along with that, some padding of 14 pixels. Yep, looks decent. Okay, and this my projects also should come in between them. Where is that? My projects. H2 ID. I'll say my project. I'll say hashtag my project. I'll say text align center, or align items. Align item center. This should work. No. Let me first see where it's coming from. Let me first apply a border. I'll say 2 pixels solid. Not the about section. This is the my project section. Text align center. Yep, now it's at the center. Now this looks good. Okay, and let me just remove the border. Also, let me give some margin from the top. 15 pixels. I'm not from the top. I'll want it from the all four directions. So I'll just say margin 14 pixels. Okay. So this is how it's looking so far. And in this section also we give this. Let's instead of that, let's only give text align center. Yeah, and some padding also. 8 pixels maybe. Yeah. Okay. So any doubts in this part? Anyone? Yep. Any doubts to this part? No? Anyone else? Yeah, we'll do the responsive part. Sandeep and Natik will do the responsive part. Okay, awesome. Now let's move ahead. let's move ahead. So okay, let's make this a bit responsive in nature. So we'll just add media queries and we'll say okay that if maybe I shrink it maybe a bit on the thinner side, maybe I want this background color to change, something like this, right? So for that I'll introduce to another concept called as media queries, right? So what are media queries? Media queries are nothing but they just are a predefined feature or a tags that could help us make a responsive website, right? Now for that what we'll do is we have a thing called as @. Media. So now what I want is, let's suppose this is the color of this navbar. Okay, I'll say at the rate media, and here I need to specify some condition. I'll say if the max width is, let's suppose 6 or maybe 500 pixels, I want the background color to be changed to red. Oh, sorry. I have to apply it where? To the header. So I'll have a header and I will close it here. Okay. Now what does this have written? I'll show you. Okay. So I'll come here. I will come to this part and let me make it here. Okay. And let me choose this option. Let me make it to 100% only. Okay. Now see, this is the width, right? This is the width of it, 500, but it's not changing the color. Let me see what's wrong. I've applied header. Max width is, just give me a second. And @media max width. We write it again, maybe. I'll say @media. I'll specify some max width, max width. In this, maybe I'll have a header, and in this header, I'm changing the background color to brown. And max width should be, or let's try min width. Min width should be 200 pixels. And let's try to shrink it. No, not coming. Let me apply to some other tags. So instead of header, let's suppose I want it in project. So I'll say dot project. Just give me a second. Only screen missing. Yeah, I'll explain each and everything I'm doing. Don't worry. No, screen is fine. Screen is fine. Screen is fine. Just give me a second. Screen is fine. No issues with the screen at least. Let's try to apply some color to the body. Okay, let's see if body is working or not. At the rate, I'll say media, and here I'll give some conditions, and this condition should be, let's suppose, max width. I'll come here and I want to apply it to the body this time. Okay, and I'll say maybe the background color should be, or what was it? Yeah, white, not white, black. And my max width should be in 600 pixels. Okay, now it's working. See, now it's working, I think. So if I reduce it below 600 pixels, see, the color is changing to black. And I also do one thing. I'll say color of the text should be white, not wheat. No, wheat, white. Let it be white. Right, so that should be. So if I reduce it below 600, okay, the color is still not changed. Background color is fine. Maybe color should work, by the way. I have a body tag here. If I give it explicitly, I'll say body, and I'll say color should be white. Okay, it's okay. It's as it is if it's not working in any way also. So instead of that, maybe I can apply a border of 2 pixels, solid and black. Not black border. Border should be white because the whole page is black. It will not look good. This should be fine. Yeah, see, now the border is also coming. Okay, so now I'll explain you what I did here, what I've done here. So we have something. Okay, so we have this thing called as media queries, right? Now inside media queries, you can tell your code that, okay, see, by responsive design, again, as I told you yesterday, responsive means that your design should look good in both the screens, irrespective of you use it in phones or mobile phones or laptops or your machines, personal computers and things like that. Right. Now, what I'm telling is that, okay, you use this keyword called as media, and you specify the constraints. I'm saying that if my maximum width, I've given maximum width 600, that means these properties are only applicable for width starting from 0 pixels to 599 pixels. As soon as it goes beyond 600 pixels, this property will not work. So now just see it. If as soon as I go below 600, see, this whole thing changes now. And why is that? Because of media queries. I'm specifying the width. And due to this, what is happening? If my screen is shrinking less than 600 pixels, it is changing its color. Similarly, what you can do is, let's suppose if you want, if I shrink it even more, let's suppose you tell that, okay, if I shrink it even more, these sections should come one below each other, because if I shrink it more, it is cutting. See, it is cutting from the screen. So this should come one below each other. You can do that. You can specify media queries, max width. Let's suppose you can specify 360, or you can take it from here itself, and we can specify the display flex. The flex direction should be column in this case, right? You can do these things. Okay, is it clear, everyone? What are media queries? Any issues? Just specify the keyword called as media, just the conditions, the constraints, and then you just write your CSS code. Okay. Any issues, anyone? Okay. Now let's just design the contractors page, and then we'll be good to go. So contractors page would be something. Again, I'll take a section. Not even section. I'll just say a form. I'll have a label. I'll just say name. I'll have an input for text. I'll break the line. I'll just say label for. I don't want email. I just want contact number. So I'll say contact number, or I'll just say contact, and one input for number. So it's not a date. It should be number. Right. And what I can do here is maybe have a submit button. So I'll say input type. Input type should be submit. Value should be submit. And this also want to break the line. Okay. And to this form, I'll go to the CSS part. Form. Display flex I won't be, because if I give display flex, it will come one below each other. Or this is also looking good. If you want, you can give it this as well. I'll say gap of 16 pixels, and maybe a background color of black. And but the color should be white. Oh, not looking good. Maybe I can just decrease the opacity. No, not looking good. Let's leave it. Instead of that, let me give some border first. Border 2 pixels solid, and let me give some padding. Yep. And let me just remove the border. Okay. And the submit button. I'm going to give it an ID called that submit. So I'll say hashtag submit. Some height and width. Height maybe 50 pixels. And width also maybe 50 pixels. No, width a bit more. $70 pixels, and color should be blue. Okay, and text decoration none. So what will happen? These borders will go from here. So if I say text decoration, I don't want any decoration, so I'll say none. Nothing here. Let's give it some border radius then. Maybe some border radius to be 10%. 10% should be enough. Yep. No. And a background color of this. Okay. By the way, these also, if I, yeah. Achha, by the way, if you want to specifically, let's suppose if I don't have any ID here, right? There's one more way to target this, right? So what you do is you say input. What you do, you say input, and which type it is. It is submit type. So submit in single brackets. You say something like submit. Not there. Wait. Input. You mention. You also mention type. You mention type equals to submit. And once you do, see, we have this submit property. And one more interesting property. See, once I move to this submit button, my cursor is not changing to that pointer, right? So if I want to, I can just say cursor pointer. Now, if I hover onto this button, see, I get this thing, get my pointer here. Cool, everyone? And similarly, I can get for input type text. Maybe I want to just decrease the width. The width should only be 20 pixels, not the width. I'll say height to be only 20 pixels. And same goes for contact. Not contact number. Yep. इसका भी height should be, let's suppose 20 only. Width ठीक है. Height कम कर देते हैं. Let's reduce the height. And give it some padding maybe. Padding. Padding bottom also 14 pixels if I go. No, not working. Anyways. Yeah, now it looks good. Padding यहाँ से हटा देते हैं. Okay. And same padding I'll give for both my text boxes. So padding is this, yeah, and padding is this. Okay. And instead of this name, yeah, ठीक है, looks good. Okay. So now if I want to mention my name, that hey, I am Ritik Masan, and my contact number, right? I can click on submit, and this form will get submitted. And that's how I receive the information. Obviously, you need JavaScript to get hold of the information and get hold of what text you're typing. But this is good to go for now. Okay. So let's. Now it's your task. It's now your task to maybe modify it, to add your own personal projects, maybe to add some more. What do you say? Maybe you can add a photo here. We all know what an image tag is. You can add an image tag. You can just play around with it, right? So that's how we can do it. Okay. All right. So with that being said, let's wrap up this session, right? I hope we all got to know a good hang of what HTML and CSS are. And if you have still any doubts, you can just let your doubts pour in, and I'm more than happy to take it. Otherwise, you can just call it a session. And obviously, you all have the access to the recordings as well. You can, if you feel any issues, you can just come back